So over the last week, there has been a story that's been sent to me several times, and I took a look at it. It's a very speculative topic, certainly rumor territory, and I figured rather than put it in a newswave, maybe over the weekend we would talk about it a bit. And you know what? That's what we're going to do here today. We're going to talk about this rumor going around about Nintendo potentially working on an all-digital Switch model. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with this video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Satisfy and the Zen Grip Pro Gen 3. Now that the Switch OLED is out, we're all playing games like never before on the system, but mostly in handheld mode. This is a good time to make sure your hands are comfortable for extended play sessions so you can enjoy that new OLED display. Satisfy has been leading the way for quality grips for the Switch, and their new Zen Grip Pro Gen 3 is set up with ergonomics in mind for a comfortable handheld experience. It maintains the same battle-tested design that everyone loves and praises, fits both old and new Switch consoles without any tools or modifications, and is easy to slide in and out when you're done playing. The patent-pending true free float technology prevents scratching, wear, and keeps the system breathing easy with proper cooling in mind with the vents. Currently available for pre-order in standalone or in a carry case bundle and is set to ship out in November. Check the link below in the description to check out the Zen Grip Pro Gen 3, and thanks again to Satisfy for sponsoring today's video. Let's start by heading over here. This is the subreddit Gaming Leaks and Rumors. They transcribed and kind of went over what was discussed on the Xbox Era podcast about an all-digital Switch. I know, Xbox Era podcast, Switch rumor, but either way, this is Nick, Xbox Era, who does put out a lot of rumors. Some of them turn out to be correct, others don't. But either way, it does bring up the interesting future that we could be heading towards here with Nintendo. He said on his podcast, Nintendo are considering either making another revision of the Switch that is digital only, likely to keep costs down, or that the next Switch successor will be digital only, or they're making the Switch successor, which is similar to like the PS5 and the Xbox Series. There is one at launch that takes physical media, and there's one that just is all digital, doesn't accept a Blu-ray or a game cart or any of that. Basically, you would be going to the eShop in this case to get all of your games. Now, again, we've seen Microsoft and Sony already do this right out of the gate, but they also kind of experimented with it before that, right? Like Sony tried it with the PSP Go. Microsoft, they tried it with their Xbox. They did the Xbox SAD, the Xbox One S all digital. Not the greatest naming for that, but they still at least attempted it, and I'm sure got a lot of market data and research from that, and it must have been good enough to where they said, yeah, this makes sense, let's do it. And really the idea here is they will introduce a cheaper model, but it will, in the long run, make more money because it ties you to the store that they get more money from, as opposed to you having the option of going out and buying a retail disc or cartridge. In Nintendo's case, they make more if you stick to their eShop, their PlayStation Network, or Xbox Live. For Microsoft and Sony, it makes a lot of sense to potentially lose money on a system for a little while there, because I'm sure the Xbox Series S and the PlayStation 5 all digital aren't exactly raking in a bunch of money at initial purchase. I know it's been talked about that Sony is making money on the PS5. However, I have a feeling it is the PS5 disc edition, the one that takes a disc, that is making them money, not the $400 PlayStation 5 digital system. And I'm sure the Series S isn't easy for Microsoft to get out there with it costing them money to create. But still, in the long run, they'll make money. And third parties, I'm sure, are backing this because they themselves make more money from digital purchases over physical. Ubisoft went over this in an investor's briefing where they put out actual documentation showcasing that if we go to retail with a box copy, the logistics behind it, and of course the materials, it's a 45-55 split. So they get 55%, and then 45% just cost, and then, of course, payment to the platform holder and all this. But if it's digital, they don't go through all the logistics of getting these discs to the store shelves, and it's 70% for Ubisoft. So 30%, of course, just goes to Nintendo, Microsoft, or Sony. Makes sense for third parties, and it makes sense for first parties. And I do look at the Switch and think, yeah, that's a system that does make sense to have an all-digital model, at least as an option, because it's a device that you're going to travel with. And I've seen a lot of people mention that I've talked to who are just like, nah, I'm just all digital on my Switch. I got this big SD card, and it's easy just to kind of drop around or move around these different games pretty easily. You drop out of one, you go into another without having to change a game cart out or carry around potentially 10, 12, 15 games if you're going on a long trip. They're small. You can lose them, of course. It's just a lot easier to have them tied to your Nintendo account that just resides on your Switch. So it wouldn't shock me if Nintendo was like, yeah, we would make more money technically by driving people to our services. It would be good for third parties, and it would eliminate one of the biggest weaknesses around the Switch outside of course, the aging X1 chip, which is the cartridge cost. It's not cheap to make these cartridges. I mean, we've seen some third parties talk about, hey, our port, it's going to be cloud-based. It's not going to be native like Kingdom Hearts. And one of the things they brought up was the cartridge size. That was a limitation they ran into. And yeah, I think there are a couple of third parties who would be on the Switch right now with some of their games if it wasn't for the cost of that cartridge and the ability to even source some of these parts. You go up to 32 gigabyte, 64 gigabyte chips. Does that make sense for them when it comes to that being a pretty pricey cartridge to put together, whereas a Blu-ray costs what, like 10, 20 cents or something to press and ship out? Now, I did ask around just for fun, just to be like, has anyone else heard that there's an all-digital Switch out there somewhere that we're missing? No one's heard of this thing or even had any whispers of it, so I can't say that Nick has accurate information around this. It wouldn't shock me if Nintendo is in R&D right now based on all of the benefits of having an all-digital option and just testing the market. Like a PSP Go or an Xbox SAD, just drop it out there, see how the sales are, see if it increases the eShop sales, because it may, and it could be something that happens towards the end of the Switch's life. It could be like that 2DS XL that popped up one night out of nowhere. Everyone thought Nintendo was done with the 3DS because the Switch was all the talk. Everyone was all about that. And then here's a 2DS XL. And everyone's just kind of like, what? It's like 8 o'clock at night for me, and here's a trailer that just shows up. That could be something that happens. Maybe that's what they do with an OLED display and a Switch Lite. It's their all-digital model for the Switch Lite, completely redesigned with the OLED display, but no option for physical media. It would certainly be a way to at least sell through those and see if people respond positively to the eShop, but I do wonder how the overall Nintendo base would react to Nintendo stepping away from physical media, even as an option. Would that paint a picture for Nintendo going forward that maybe they would lean into the idea of an all-digital future, much like Sony and Microsoft are essentially diving headfirst into? It is something to consider, since if you went back in time, like 5-6 years ago, during the Wii U's life, and you said, in like 5-6 years, next generation, Nintendo, they're going to have third-party games that are just cloud-based. They're not even going to have physical media. It's just going to be on the cloud. You don't even download it. You just stream it. People look at you like you're crazy. But here's Hitman 3. Here's Control. Here's Kingdom Hearts running through the cloud. So while I do look at Nintendo as a company that would go kicking and screaming into the all-digital era with a Switch model that would reflect that, you kind of never say never with some of these things, especially if it makes a lot of sense for a business or a large billion-dollar corporation like Nintendo and their bottom line. But let me know what you guys think about all of this down below. Is this something that could happen in the next couple of years? Could this be an option or a model that Nintendo tests with the next Switch revision? We're all talking about a Switch Pro, right? Or some kind of more powerful Switch. And then they show up and they're like, oh yeah, here's the Nintendo Switch all digital edition. Or do you think they're going to try to do what Sony and Microsoft have already done with the PS5 and the Xbox Series, release an all-digital next-generation Switch and then one that still takes cartridges? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.